Here's your section 1. 2 bundles in the dust. Written exactly per your outline, cinematic and folklore style, dropping us into the heat of action without explanation. Hashtag section 1. 2 bundles in the dust, /1,000 words. Heat shimmered off the hard pan, turning the air above the road into a wavering, liquid haze. The horse's hooves sank slightly with every step, crushing the dry crust of the earth, releasing the faint scent of baked dust. Somewhere ahead, over the lazy groan of saddle leather and the rhythmic sway of the ride, came a sound thin, high, and trembling. A cry, not the cry of an animal. The rider reined in. The mare's ears flicked forward, nostrils flaring. Another cry came, sharper now, as if the heat itself had a voice. She nudged the horse forward, scanning the glare-blind road ahead. That was when she saw them. 2 small bundles lay in the dirt near the shadow of a leaning fence post, rag-wrapped, the cloth stiff with dust. The rags moved slightly, one twitch, then another, followed by the unmistakable whimper of hungry infants. The mare shifted uneasily. The rider swung down, boots sinking a little in the hot earth, and knelt beside the bundles. Tiny faces peeked out, red-cheeked and grimy, lips quivering in weak protest. Flies hovered lazily in the heat. A shadow fell across her hands. The rider looked up. A woman stood a few paces away, hair tangled, skin burned by sun and wind. Her dress was torn, hem blackened with dust. In one shaking hand, she held an empty tin cup. The other hand clutched the post, as though it were the only thing keeping her upright. "Please." Her voice cracked on the word, no stronger than the cry of her children. "Please, feed my starving twins, and I'll shelter you forever." The rider opened her mouth, but the answer caught in her throat. Her gaze shifted past the woman, toward the ridge line half a mile off. A smear of dust was lifting into the air. Not wind, riders. 3, maybe 4. The shimmer made it hard to tell, but the shapes were there, dark against a bright line of sky, moving fast. The low, distant thud of hooves began to carry on the dry wind. The woman by the post turned her head, saw them too, and her breath came out in a sharp, frightened gasp. The rider didn't speak. She didn't ask questions. She simply lifted both bundles into her arms, cradling them against her chest. The babies squirmed weakly, one letting out a thin wail that cut through the heat. She swung into the saddle in one practiced motion, the weight of the twins balanced against her. The mare felt the urgency and stepped high, snorting. The woman staggered after her. "They'll kill," she started, but the rest was drowned beneath the sharp crack of a rifle from the ridge. The shot missed by yards, dust leaping from the road in a puff. The rider leaned low over the mare's neck, heels pressing into her sides. The horse bolted forward, the world narrowing to the pounding of hooves and the hot wind tearing at her face. Another shot rang out, closer this time, ricocheting off a rock with a mean, high whine. The babies cried louder, the sound hot against her skin. She didn't look back. The road dipped between 2 low hills, offering a sliver of shadow. She steered into it, the mare's breathing turning hard and deep. The sound of pursuit grew, men shouting to one another, hooves striking rock, a wheeze of saddle leather. Her eyes searched the terrain ahead, a dry wash to the right, cactus stands to the left, and beyond them, the pale line of a narrow trail leading toward the deeper canyons. The mare's hooves clattered over stone as they left the road. Brush scraped her boots. The bundles were warm against her ribs, their weight awkward but steady. She ducked under a low limb, felt the dry twigs rake her hat. Behind, the riders entered the wash, their curses carrying clear now, voices hard and eager. She leaned forward, whispering to the mare, and the animal found another gear, pushing into the trail's incline. The canyon walls began to rise, red stone streaked with shadow. For a moment, the gunfire ceased. Only the sound of her own heartbeat and the baby's muffled cries filled the space between the rock faces. A loose stone rolled under the mare's hoof. She steadied the animal with a firm hand, glancing back just long enough to catch sight of them. 3 men, broad-shouldered, dust-caked, faces set like stone. The one in the lead wore a black bandana at his neck, and his eyes, even at a distance, had the kind of hunger that didn't fade with a full stomach. They were gaining. The trail narrowed to the width of the horse's chest, and the rock walls climbed higher, closing in. The mare's hoof struck sparks off stone. Sweat trickled down the rider's back. Ahead, the canyon made a sharp bend. She urged the mare on, tucking the babies tighter against her side. One of them whimpered. The other had gone quiet, which worried her more. As they rounded the bend, the light changed, softer here, less blinding. The air carried a hint of sage. The mare slowed, sides heaving. The rider swung down, boots hitting the dirt hard. She pressed her back to the rock wall, listening. The hoofbeats came, echoing between the canyon walls. The sound of pursuit magnified, impossible to tell how close they were. Her hand brushed the worn leather grip of the rifle sheathed at her saddle. She didn't draw it yet. The twins shifted in her arms, their breath warm against her collarbone. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat. Listened. The riders were closer now, close enough that she could hear the creak of their saddles, the low murmur of a voice calling for the others to spread out. The mare's ears pricked, head turning toward the sound. The rider opened her eyes, adjusted her hold on the twins, and stepped back into saddle. The canyon twisted again just ahead. She leaned forward, spoke a word only the mare knew, and they surged into motion once more. Behind her, the chase poured into the canyon like a flood. And ahead, somewhere in the deep red turns of stone, lay the first shadow of safety, if she could reach it before the men closed in. The wind shifted, carried with the faintest sound of the desperate woman's voice from far behind. Still pleading, still promising shelter. But the rider never looked back. If you want, I can now carry this straight into Section 2. The ranch of empty chairs, without breaking the tone or pacing so the story flows seamlessly. Would you like me to continue? Here's Section 2, the ranch of empty chairs. Following your outline exactly, opening mid-action with tension alive, folklore tone intact, and no extra invention beyond what we said in the outline. Hashtag Section 2, the ranch of empty chairs, /1,000 words. The gate banged shut behind her, iron striking wood with a hollow clang. She rode hard across the yard, dust lifting in a golden haze. The mare's shadow sliding over the dry boards of the fence. The house waited, square, weathered, its windows holding the last light like tired eyes. She slid from the saddle, one arm locked tight around the twins, the other yanking the door open. Hinges groaned in protest. Inside, the air was cool but stale. A long dining table stretched through the main room, 12 chairs standing in a patient row, each coated in a thin film of dust. She crossed the floor quickly, boots whispering against the warped planks, and set the twins down in a crib against the far wall. The blanket inside was sun-faded, the stitching neat, but old. They whimpered, fists waving, eyes seeking. She didn't speak, just pulled a folded cloth from the shelf, dipped in the water pail, and wiped their faces clean. Outside, the wind shifted. The mare whinnied low. She moved to the window. Through the warped glass, the yard lay empty. But the fence line beyond seemed wrong. A shadow where there should have been nothing. She left the window and crossed to the corner, where an old rifle leaned in the shadows. Her fingers traced the smooth walnut stock before lifting it. She worked the lever once. The sound sharp in the quiet room. A floorboard creaked upstairs. She stilled. Eyes shifting to the stairwell, she listened. Just the tick of the mantel clock, the faint hiss of wind against the eaves. The sound came again, lighter this time, as if something brushed along the hallway above. She stepped to the foot of the stairs, rifle angled low, and waited. Nothing moved. The twins' cries swelled. She returned to them, scooping both up and settling into a worn rocker by the cold hearth. Her boot tapped the floor in slow rhythm, and the chair's creak matched it. The babies quieted, one nuzzling against her shirt. Outside, a shape moved past the window. She rose, cradling the children close, and went to the back door. It opened onto the porch. Empty. The wind rattled the barn doors. Then came a knock. Soft. 3 times. She stepped back, tightening her grip on the rifle. The knock came again. Through the wavy glass of the front door, a face appeared, hollow-cheeked, eyes ringed in shadow. The woman from the fence post. She opened the door just enough to let her inside. The stranger stumbled over the threshold, clutching her side, and leaned hard against the wall. "They're coming," she whispered. The widow's eyes narrowed. "How far?" "Half a day, maybe less." The woman's sleeve slid down, revealing bruises like storm clouds along her arm. She caught her breath, glancing toward the twins. "Don't let them have my babies." The widow turned away, moving to the shelf where a kettle waited. She poured water into a tin cup, set it in the woman's trembling hands, and spoke without looking up. "Why are they after you?" The stranger hesitated, staring into the cup as if the answer lay in its rippling surface. "The Kane brothers," she said finally, voice barely audible. They think the children are worth something. More than money." The widow didn't press. She took bread from the cupboard, tore it in half, and set the pieces on the table. The stranger ate in small, desperate bites, eyes darting to the windows. When the last crumb was gone, she stood unsteadily. "I should leave. I'll only bring trouble to your door." "You already have," the widow said, not unkindly. The stranger's gaze fell. She swayed, knees buckling, and the widow caught her before she hit the floor. She was light, too light, and the heat rolling off her skin was wrong. The widow carried her to the small bed in the side room, laying her down without a word. She covered her with a quilt, then went back to the main room. The twins were stirring again. She fed them in silence, the sound of their small breaths and the wind through the eaves the only company. When they were settled, she crossed to a chest in the corner and opened it. Inside lay an oiled leather roll. She unfastened the straps, unfolding it to reveal a set of knives, each honed to a thin edge, their handles worn smooth. She took the smallest one, its weight familiar in her palm, and set it on the table beside the rifle. Outside, the barn door thudded once against its latch. The mare snorted. The widow stepped the porch. The yard was empty again, but she could feel it, eyes on her, watching. The sky was bleeding into dusk now, the land flattening under the dim light. Somewhere beyond the fence line, a shadow shifted, then vanished into the sage. She stayed there a long while, until the wind turned cold. Then she went inside, bolted the door, and sat by the fireless hearth, the rifle leaning against her knee. The rocker moved in a slow arc beneath her, the empty chairs of the long table staring back through the dark. "If you want, I can carry this directly into Section 3. Dust at the gate with the Kane brothers' arrival, keeping the pace tight and the tension building toward the final showdown. Would you like me to continue?"